1987, a young mid-level officer of the 1st KGB department of the USSR, Vladimir Putin, has been in Germany for 2 years and is listed as an employee under the guise of the House of Soviet-German Friendship in Dresden. Since the beginning of 1986, he has been actively cooperating with the East German Ministry of State Security and is a frequent visitor to the Stasi office in Dresden. Territorially, the headquarters of the KGB was located near the Stasi, which made it possible for Vladimir Putin to meet daily with employees of the German State Security Office. 5 USSR KGB operatives served with Vladimir Putin in Dresden, but none of them contacted representatives of the Stasi as often as he did. Everyone had their own tasks. So, Vladimir Putin worked undercover as a translator in the House of Soviet-German Friendship and carried out minor assignments from the leadership. His duties included curating and recruiting Soviet students. Vladimir Putin was not a serious figure in the KGB at the time, as he did not have the opportunity to prove himself. Dresden is the periphery for the KGB operations. There were no secret and important operations in the city carried out. Vladimir Putin understands that his career in the KGB of the USSR has no chances. In this regard, he begins to ingratiate himself with high-ranking politicians, the military, and secret officials, setting himself the goal of developing contacts with the right people. Putin plans to use these permanent contacts in the future for his own personal benefit. In the summer of 1987, Vladimir Putin attends a closed operational meeting at the Stasi, which was attended by undercover British intelligence officers. At this closed meeting, representatives of one of the most secret and powerful special services of Britain noticed a young KGB officer. The Cold War influenced the millions of dollars subsidies to the secret services of European countries provided by the United States for the recruitment of KGB officers. Since the beginning of the 1950s, the CIA, together with the German intelligence service, has conducted dozens of successful special operations to recruit Soviet officers from various departments. One of these operations was Mercury, which consisted in identifying and recruiting officers of the USSR KGB First Department. At that time, Vladimir Putin, along with his wife Ludmila and 2 daughters Maria and Katerina, lived on the outskirts of Dresden, in a 2-room apartment, a typical panel 6-story building for a salary of 1,800 East German marks. By the standards of the inhabitants of Germany, the salary was not so great for the carefree life of Ludmila and their children. Vladimir Putin lived very modestly in Dresden. After working hours, he liked to drink a glass of Rtut beer at the Antier pub. On the weekends, he liked to go fishing on the lake near the Moritzburg hunting castle. In December 1987, in Moritzburg, not far from the lake, where Vladimir Putin once again fished, a meeting was held with British intelligence officers, about which the 35-year-old KGB officer did not report to his leadership in Moscow. From now on, Vladimir Putin will open a new page in his life. Namely, huge opportunities that he could only dream of. But it is unlikely that a simple KGB officer dreamed of such a thing. Year 1988. Vladimir Putin waited his time. A meeting at the hunting castle of the Saxon prince-electors in Moritzburg in December 1987 with the British intelligence service officer, Gerrit Schein, bears fruit. First of all, financial. These are tens of thousands of US dollars, which are kept in an account with Deutsche Bank in West Germany. The money for the KGB officer was transferred for Hans Lehmann. Hans Lehmann worked at the paper factory in Brandenburg at that time and often came to Dresden to visit his parents. This made it possible to see Vladimir Putin almost every month and bring him various consumer goods and high-quality equipment from West Germany. At that time, Gerrit Schein received information from Vladimir Putin about the members of the Red Army faction organization. This German left-wing radical organization operated in Germany and West Berlin and was oversaw by the GDR Ministry of State Security, the Stasi. It was created as a reserve of saboteurs in case of wartime in East Germany. Its participants viewed their activities as an urban guerrilla war directed against the state apparatus. According to the memoirs of Dietmar Clodo, one of the functionaries of the Red Army faction, the KGB and the Stasi never gave us instructions directly. They used to say,
«Нам никогда не давали инструкции напрямую. Они говорили, мы слышали, что вы планируете что-то, как вы хотите это реализовать, и делали свои предложения, могли предложить другие цели, спрашивали, в чем мы нуждаемся, а нам всегда нужно было оружие и деньги». И мы давали Путину список.
At the end of the 90s, the number of employees and agents of the Stasi was estimated at about 91,000 people on a full-time basis and about 200,000 unofficial employees, respectively. Approximately every 10th citizen of East Germany in those years collaborated with the Ministry of State Security of the GDR. This is one of the highest levels of saturation of society with agents in world history. The Stasi diligently controlled the behavior of East German citizens in order to prevent any politically incorrect actions. The Stasi motto,
"There is no irrelevant information,"
was implemented with enviable persistence in the framework of cooperation with representatives of the KGB of the USSR. In this regard, Vladimir Putin easily received from the Ministry of State Security of the GDR all the information necessary for Gerrit Schein about the members of the Red Army faction. In total, Vladimir Putin handed over to the British Special Services dozens of dossiers on members of this German left-wing radical terrorist organization, among whom were its well-known functionaries. Among them Inga Fitt, also known as Eva Maria Sommer, Eva Schnell, an immigrant from West Germany, involved in the murder of the president of the Court of West Berlin, responsible for several bank robberies, kidnapping a businessman in Austria, organizing a shootout in Paris in which a police officer was wounded. The brothers Wolfgang and Henning Beer, involved in the 1981 car bombing of General Kreutzen, the commander of American troops in Europe at that time. Andrea Klump was involved in the explosion of the head of Deutsche Bank, Alfred Herrhausen. Dietmar Clodo, involved in a number of terrorist acts in Europe. The main part of the members of the Red Army faction was sheltered by the Ministry of State Security of the GDR in East Germany, which made them almost elusive and unpunished for Western justice. Dresden, as a province, not a capital, was chosen as a meeting place and training camp for members of the Red Army faction, on each of whom a dossier was created. 1988 for Vladimir Putin was the first step towards big money, which was paid for by British taxpayers through Gerrit Schein, a British intelligence officer.
Быстро я попал на работу во внешнюю разведку и в основном работал по линии нелегальной разведки. Нас там воспитывали в духе исключительной преданности Отечеству.
Year 1989. British intelligence has maximized its work and contacts with representatives of the intellectual elite in the Eastern Bloc states in order to intensify the collection of information. Back in 1987, foreseeing the collapse of the German Democratic Republic, the leadership of the secret services in London actualized the task of spreading Western ideas and introducing them into the social system in the GDR. By the beginning of 1989, Vladimir Putin had almost completed the task of Gerrit Schein to transfer the dossier on the members of the German left-wing radical terrorist organization Red Army faction. During the period of cooperation with the special services, he photographed more than 200 dossiers, including archival ones, on current members of this organization. This made it possible for police officers of European countries to bring in the 90s to justice many members of the Red Army faction. On March 29, 1989, the head of the Dresden District Directorate of the Ministry of State Security, the Stasi, or BEN, submitted a report to Vladimir Putin's direct superior, General Shurkov, in which he accused his subordinates of trying to recruit officers of the armed forces of the GDR. Orban considered it necessary to arrest Vladimir Putin on charges of obtaining information constituting a military secret of the GDR. However, intelligence officers, having learned about the danger threatening Putin, warned him and also recommended that he temporarily stop collecting data on the Stasi. At the same time, through his contacts in Orban's entourage, British intelligence officers dissuaded him from intending to arrest the KGB officer, which allowed Vladimir Putin to avoid the threat of being imprisoned in the German Democratic Republic. And from that moment on, the friendship between Harald Schein and Vladimir Putin became even stronger. In the summer of 1989, Vladimir Putin was awarded a bronze medal for outstanding services to the National People's Army of the GDR, which put an end to the possible indictment of the lieutenant colonel of the KGB of the USSR and marked the fact of complete reconciliation of the parties. On September 4, 1989, mass protests of citizens began in the GDR, which were of a peaceful nature. The protesters demanded a change in the political leadership of the country and the democratization of public life. The protest movement that began in Leipzig was joined by Dresden, Karl-Marx-Stadt, Magdeburg, Arnstadt, Raster, and Potsdam. Dresden was one of many East German cities whose inhabitants, participating in the peaceful revolution movement, led to the opening of the borders between East and West Germany, the collapse of the Berlin Wall, and the reunification of Germany. On December 5, 1989, in Dresden, just a few weeks after the fall of the Berlin Wall, East German communism is dying and popular power seems invincible. Mobs of people stormed the Dresden headquarters of the Stasi, which proved unable to defend itself. At this time, a small group of demonstrators heads across the street to a small house, which was the office of the KGB of the USSR. Vladimir Putin, at the gate of the building, was able to convince the demonstrators not to break into the KGB premises and move away from the building.
Толпа, она, конечно, есть толпа. Никакой ругани не было. Я просто старался объяснить, кто мы такие и почему мы не можем допустить никакого осмотра.
The 39-year-old lieutenant colonel understood how dangerous the situation was and called the headquarters of the Red Army Tank Division with a request for protection. But the answer he received was crushing for him.
Без распоряжения Москвы ничего сделать не можем, а Москва молчит.
Вряд ли кто-то мог себе представить, что ситуация будет разворачиваться именно таким образом.
On the eve of the Christmas holidays, Vladimir Putin meets with a British intelligence officer and learns that both the German Democratic Republic and the USSR will cease to exist in the near future. And since Vladimir Putin's term in the GDR was coming to an end, he was offered a job in the Soviet Union. Methods of communication were discussed with the KGB officer, and the name of Georgy Palkin was also mentioned, through which contact with the British intelligence service would be maintained. At the beginning of 1990, Vladimir Putin returned to the USSR, where he continued to serve in the first department of the Leningrad Directorate of the KGB of the USSR. In April, he was appointed to an undercover position assistant to the rector of the Leningrad State Zhdanov University, and in May he became an advisor to the chairman of the Leningrad City Council. Having information from Harald Schein about the imminent collapse of the USSR, Vladimir Putin decides to write a report on his dismissal, in order to finally get access to the funds in Deutsche Bank received from British intelligence. However, the leadership of the KGB does not accept Vladimir Putin's report.
Знаете, нет одинаковых отпечатков пальцев. Каждый человек
отличается от другого не только отпечатками пальцев, но своим восприятием мира. Каждый человек — это отдельный мир. И поэтому у каждого из нас, безусловно, свое понимание счастья. Но вот для меня сегодня это, безусловно, возможность формулировать большие задачи, цели, возможность добиваться этих целей, идти к этим целям. И должен сказать, что когда мне удается добиваться того, к чему я иду, и несмотря ни на какие сложности, добиваюсь этого результата, это приносит мне удовлетворение.
May 1990.
Having returned from the GDR, Vladimir Putin in May becomes an advisor to the then chairman of the Leningrad City Council, Mayor Anatoly Sobchak's team.
Anatoly Sobchak was born on August 10, 1937 in the city of Chita, East Siberian region. He was a Soviet statesman and politician, legal scholar, doctor of law, professor.
In 1991, Sobchak became mayor of St. Petersburg. Needing an assistant, Sobchak sought advice from his old friend Mikhail Miroashvili, known as Misha Kutaisky in criminal circles.
Mikhail Miroashvili, born on May 1, 1960, was a businessman in Georgia and a kingpin of the USSR, one of the closest assistants and a friend of Anatoly Sobchak.
His proposed candidacy was Vladimir Putin. Michael Miroashvili, as well as the rest of the gangster groups in St. Petersburg, needed a man in the mayor's office with whom it would be possible to have joint affairs hassle-free, and soon Vladimir Putin held office as a head of the Foreign Relations Committee of the St. Petersburg mayor's office, and at the same time became the right hand of Mayor Sobchak. During this time, Vladimir Putin supervises diplomatic missions, hotels, gambling, public associations, and, of course, all law enforcement bodies, ensuring interaction with the armed forces, customs, prosecutor's office, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and the Federal Counterintelligence Service. That time establishing ties with the officials and criminals of Petersburg and also being supported by foreign intelligence services, he actually gained powerful influence on the city of drawbridges. Vladimir Putin has repeatedly taken part in the redistribution of the most valuable state property objects among the city mafia groupings. Precisely, a self-financing complex enterprise, the Baltic Sea Shipping Company, was handed over to Ilya Ilyich Traber's criminal gang.
Traber Ilya Ilyich was born on September 8, 1950, in the city of Omsk. In December 1991, he headed the Restoration and Commercial Center Antiquarian, created according to the Leningrad City Council Executive Committee decision. Traber is known to be familiar with Vladimir Putin at least since that time. Ilya Traber, nicknamed Antiquarian.
Samtrust plant was transferred under the control of Mikhail Miroashvili's group, which was directly connected to the Baltic Sea Shipping Company. Due to Putin's control over the enterprise, it appeared possible to organize sale of Russian vessels at reduced prices, while all actions were carried out through the criminal kingpin Traber.
October 20th, 1992.
On October 20th, 1992, the 20th Trust Corporation was founded as a joint stock company, but very soon it turned from a state company into a completely private enterprise. The post of president was taken by Sergei Nikishin at the behest of Vladimir Putin.
Nikishin Sergei, born on May 7, 1958 in Leningrad, the president of the 20th Trust Corporation, Vladimir Putin's business partner, deputy of the Legislative Assembly of St. Petersburg. December 1992.
In December 1992, an order issued to pump huge funds from the state budget into the corporation for the construction of Peter the Great Business Center. Precisely the amount of 2,900,000,000 rubles appears. Vladimir Putin was the one who petitioned Sobchak for the allocation of funds from the city budget. About 400 million of the allocated funds were spent on the marketing research, a concrete fence installation, a watchman with a trailer and a dog from a neighboring yard as security guard. The remaining amount of 2.5 billion rubles was sent by Vladimir Putin to the European bank accounts and shared among his New Petersburg criminal friends. Soon, at Vladimir Putin's direction, more than 400 million rubles from the budget of St. Petersburg was allocated to 20th Trust Corporation for the reconstruction of a monastery in Israel. The funds administered for the reconstruction by Vladimir Putin and his partner Sergei Nikishin, with the help of foreign security services, were converted by the corporation and transferred to Spanish banks' accounts. Then some money was partially spent on the acquisition of 232 apartment hotel-type buildings in Spain, in the city of Torrevieja. Subsequently, no acts of repair and reconstruction of the monastery were found by the state auditors, and later the auditors themselves disappeared. However, a letter sent by Sergei Nikishin, the 20th Trust Corporation president, was opened up, in which he expressed gratitude to Vladimir Putin for the financial assistance provided and asked him for financial support from Mayor Sobchak's contingency fund. The 20th Trust transferred funds through Vladimir Putin's favorite account in Dresden Bank, headed by a former Stasi employee.
1992.
Vladimir Putin simultaneously got a second position, deputy mayor, and he remained in the office until the end of Sobchak's term, gradually becoming his first deputy. Putin, among other things, headed the mayor's office commission on operational issues and substituted the mayor in case of his absence in the city.
1993.
Anatoly Sobchak suggests that Vladimir Putin returned to the KGB system, or quitted and stayed to work for him, as it was not cool at all, for political reasons, to have a KGB active reserve officer as a deputy. Putin decides to leave the active reserve as there was a leak in the city that the second person after the mayor of St. Petersburg is a security service officer.
1994.
Vladimir Putin is first deputy chairman of St. Petersburg administration. Later, on his initiative, Mayor Anatoly Sobchak signs an order to streamline the activities of private detectives and security companies. This gave Vladimir Putin the opportunity to merge his criminal environment. Vladimir Vladimirovich's specialty was the desire to create some state-controlled monopoly or pseudo-monopoly structures in the city. And one of these structures was Petersburg Fuel Company, the oil products wholesale and retail company, Vladimir Putin being its part-time member of the supervisory board. And later on the company was transferred under the control of the Tambov mob group headed by Vladimir Sergeyevich Barsukov.
Vladimir Sergeyevich Barsukov, a Russian criminal kingpin, was born on February 10, 1956 in the village of Alexandrovka, Tambov region, member of the Tambov organized crime group, having strong ties with St. Petersburg City Hall mayor's office, namely with Vladimir Putin. In 1994, he became one of the co-founders of Petersburg Fuel Company, the oil products wholesale and retail company. 1995.
Vladimir Putin heads the regional branch of the movement Our Home Russia, with the previously mentioned Sergei Nikolaevich Nikishin, the president of joint stock company 20th Trust Corporation, as its political council member, which Vladimir Putin robbed the budget of St. Petersburg with. But this job was not interesting to Putin, since he did not consider it financially profitable, and this position was not useful for foreign intelligence and security services. Ultimately, Vladimir Putin decided to step down as the chairman of the council of the St. Petersburg Regional Organization Office Our Home Russia.
1996.
Putin was directly involved in the gubernatorial elections for Anatoly Sobchak, lost by the latter, and was actually fired after he had refused to work for the new governor. But working at the administration of Anatoly Sobchak, he established close ties with organized crime. Vladimir Putin played a key role at the mayor's office, and his approval was crucial to all decisions. Vladimir Putin also built relations with Western businessmen with the help of foreign intelligence, which bought from him information on domestic firms. Later on, Vladimir Putin received an offer from his foreign intelligence case officer Harold Schein. He could not refuse to move to Moscow.
Думаю, что это правильное деление. Может быть, в Москве так и что-то есть в этом смысле. Прежде был удивлен его таким добрым отношением ко мне.
(1996). Upon arrival in Moscow, Vladimir Putin holds the position of deputy head of the administration of the President of the Russian Federation, makes new friends with the criminals and the elite of Moscow, and he continues to earn money using a variety of fraud schemes. Due to the assistance of Western intelligence services, he has the opportunity for smooth and beneficial cooperation with foreign entrepreneurs. This allows him to use Russian industry for personal gain. One such scheme, which has been operating since 1994, was the Svetoslav firm, which got a license for export of high-quality cotton abroad from Vladimir Putin. In their turn, the countries receiving the shipments of cotton, according to the terms of the contract, were committed to provide Russia with foodstuff costing $76 million. However, the funds were transferred to Vladimir Putin's personal account through Dresden Bank, and later, at the direction of Harold Schein and Georgy Palkin, to the Neox Bank account. Petersburg never received the food. The documents of the Svetoslav firm indicate a certain Moscow address, where the money from non-existent sales was transferred to. There is no Svetoslav firm registered at this address at all, but Unicom Bank directly connected with Dresden Bank, with Juldasbek Aitjanov as a board of directors member who headed the Moscow Textile Manufacturing Corporation. Juldasbek Aitjanov, born on July 24, 1963 in the city of Chust, Namangan region, chairman of the Council of Higher Education of the Republic of Uzbekistan. In 1983 to 1988, he was studying at the Tashkent State Economic University, Industrial Technologies faculty. In 1990, he started his career in the industrial sector, working as a socio-economic development specialist in Uzbekistan. Since 1996, he has been the head of the Moscow Textile Manufacturing Corporation. The position of the deputy director of Unicom Bank is held by Yuri Lvov, who simultaneously is the president of St. Petersburg Bank, whose shareholder is Vladimir Putin. Yuri Ivanovich Lvov was born in 1945 in the city of Leningrad, where he graduated from the Leningrad Financial and Economic Institute with a degree in finance and credit, then worked in the system of construction banks. He chaired the directorate of the Construction Bank of the Leningrad region for 8 years, in 1979-1987. From 1987 to 1994, he headed the Leningrad regional office of Jelsotsbank. In 1994, he became the president of the bank St. Petersburg.
It was the Yuri Lvov, together with Vladimir Putin, who created the first St. Petersburg currency exchange. Under the strict guidance of Vladimir Putin, contracts are signed with Western partners for the sale of metal, timber, and oil products shipped abroad in huge quantities. Al Sakaya Group was one of such partner companies, registered in the United Arab Emirates. The company gets licenses for the export of timber for about 1 billion rubles, always issued by Vladimir Putin. Raw materials are shipped in bulk abroad, and the money is transferred to the Western accounts of Neox Bank, indicated by the intelligence services, where it is managed by Vladimir Putin. Applying the same scheme, Vladimir Putin creates the Russian Forest Company, which, thanks to the seaport of St. Petersburg JSC, provides timber transshipment services to England in the amount of 832 million rubles, and in return, England ships food in sugar. However, the sugar mysteriously disappears right in the port of St. Petersburg. After the investigation conducted by the law enforcement agencies, controlled by Vladimir Putin, it is reported that the sugar has melted, and one of the company's leaders, Andrei Lazarev, responsible for negotiating with Western partners on food supplies to Russia, drowned under unclear circumstances. Along with illegal earnings, Vladimir Vladimirovich oversees exterior economic relations with foreign companies on behalf of the Russian Federation and controls all contractual and legal activities. Under his supervision, the companies outside the Russian Federation, designed to manage the Kremlin's property abroad, are established. (1997). In the African city of Abidjan, at one of the conferences on gold mining companies' cooperation between Russia and Africa, a young interpreter, Adiola, representing one of the African companies, came into view of Vladimir Putin. Later, Vladimir Vladimirovich meets her. Vladimir Putin immediately had his eye on the young girl. Sometime later, Vladimir Putin again, but on personal matters, visits Abidjan, where enjoys his time with the African mistress Adiola. Now the earnings of Vladimir Putin are transferred not only to the bank accounts known to the Western intelligence agencies, but to the territory of Africa, where expensive property is purchased and the new mistress is arranging a better life. The Western intelligence agencies did not like it much, but Vladimir Putin managed to set his own terms, which the intelligence services had to accept and continue their cooperation under the new circumstances. While holding his new position in Moscow, Vladimir Putin continues to demonstrate his former influence on St. Petersburg and the city's entrepreneurs, making it clear that the city is under his complete control. He arranges regular visits of different officials to St. Petersburg, not forgetting to fulfill the tasks set by Western intelligence services, and to do business with the criminal world. In the criminal circles, Vladimir Vladimirovich keeps close ties with old friends, namely with Vladimir Barsukov, Alexei Miller, and Ilya Traber.
Это останется с нами навсегда. Но это не помешает нам найти и наказать преступников. Мы должны делать это без срока давности, знать их всех поименно. Мы будем искать их везде, где бы они ни прятались. Мы их найдем в любой точке планеты и покараем.
In one of the telephone conversations, a criminal confidant of Vladimir Putin reports that businessman Maxim Fraidzon has come into their view. Fraidzon is trying to establish the production of weapons for Russian law enforcement agencies on the model of the US smoothbore shotguns in St. Petersburg. Since Vladimir Putin began to control the St. Petersburg business back under Anatoly Sobchak, he sends one of his friends, Vladimir Barsukov, to meet with Maxim Fraidzon after receiving the information. Fraidzon Maxim Robertovich, born in Leningrad, Ph.D., Physical and Mathematical Sciences, Russian businessman, founder of a company for the production of US-style police weapons in the Russian Federation. Barsukov introduces himself as an assistant to Vladimir Putin, having discussed the conditions for doing business. During the conversation, he hands over to Fraidzon a document from Vladimir Vladimirovich, which indicated the amount of $200,000, the payment that will allow him to work without problems. Maxim Fraidzon realizes that there is no choice and agrees to cooperate with Vladimir Putin. Further, all financial issues with Maxim Fraidzon are supervised by a confidant of Vladimir Putin, Alexei Miller. Having gained much broader power and the support of foreign intelligence services, on July 25, 1998, Vladimir Putin becomes a chairman of the FSB and proceeds to the implementation of the main tasks set by his case officer from the Western Intelligence Service, Georgy Palkin, to reform the FSB structure, reducing the unsuitable for Western Intelligence Services staff.
Должен выполнить поручение президента и представить вновь назначенного директора Федеральной службы безопасности Владимира Владимировича Путина. Указ подписан Борисом Николаевичем в субботу.